going to do a video and I'm a bit nervous about it because it's quite a technical one. I don't know, this might have to be in 2 parts or even 3 parts. So first of all, I'm just going to give you a background of why I'm making this video. Some weeks ago I went to Post Neutrino's channel and I watched his race mix rant. So basically he was giving his comments over this documentary made by Channel 4, which was basically implicitly implying that mixed race people are superior than non-mixed race people because of hybrid vigour. Okay, so I'll say more about that later. So what happened is I left a comment saying that probably there's some kind of middle point where some obviously inbreeding, extreme inbreeding is bad. We all know that. You know, if you have babies with your sister, for example, there's problems with the health of the children. That's why it's taboo. But at the other extreme, you know, if you cross a donkey with a horse, you get a mule, which is infertile. So obviously there's a point where too much outbreeding is also bad, but these documentaries never talk about that, do they? It's always tricky mixing science with politics, and I'm going to try to be as honest as I can as a scientist. Let me give you an example. When I was about 16 years old, I was studying biology at school, and we weren't actually taught explicitly about hybrid vigour, but I remember seeing this before the exam. We were looking at past exam papers, and there was a question about some cats having kittens, and the kittens were more vigorous, etc. And I asked my biology teacher, you know, I don't understand, how do I explain this? And he explained about hybrid vigour. So obviously it's taught at schools because it fits the narrative, and when I was in Scandinavia, you know, everybody was always talking about, oh, we're too inbred. So, you know, obviously the education system in Sweden and Finland was also trying to push this narrative. Now, when I was in my 20s, I read a book by Isaac. I think it was called Sense and Nonsense in Psychology. Now, he made a good point that you can always separate the science from the politics. He gave an example that, okay, all the psychology experiments show that. I'm just going to look at my watch. Okay, I need to time this. Okay, so let me just repeat that. I was reading a book by Hans Isaac about psychology, yeah? And he made an important point, saying that all this studies tend to suggest that if you segregate children according to their ability, so if you have classes with all clever children and another class where the children are not clever, both groups learn better than if you mix them. Okay, and then he said, well, you know, you can accept this fact, but you can still vote for parties which promote mixing of abilities. So, you know, you might have moral objections to segregating children. So you want the you want to preserve your morality of equality before the empirical fact that, in fact, segregated children into groups of clever children and not so clever children actually do better in class. So you can always, and I've said this in my videos, I said that, you know, even if they prove that multiracial societies worked and, you know, are less violent than I would still be an ethno-nationalist because of, you know, I want to preserve the global diversity. So, you know, white British people in one part of the world, in Britain, and black people in South Africa and Australian Aborigines in Australia, for example. You know, I want to preserve that. I think every ethnic group should have its own homeland and preserve their ethnic identity. That's my fundamental ideology. So, you know, I'm prepared to face up to facts, even if they don't fit my narrative. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, just back to the just back to the biology. When I first heard about hybrid vigor, I didn't like it. It was against what I thought, intuitively thought. So, but I kind of had to accept it because, you know, my biology teacher said it was such and such, and there was experimental evidence. Likewise, you know, I couldn't accept Darwin's theory of evolution very easily at the beginning. I tended to believe in a more Lamarckian version of evolution because, you know, it's more in harmony of, you know, if I study hard and keep fit, I can pass that on to my children. But it seems it doesn't work that way. You can only pass on your intrinsic genetic factors. So that's what I'm saying, that sometimes it's difficult to face up to the reality that science gives to us. Oh yes, that was the other thing I wanted to say. This is going to be a long video, okay? I remember seeing on YouTube one black man saying, "Oh, you know, I'm fed up with these white nationalists saying that there's white genocide. The white genes will survive." Okay, so obviously he understood that genes are like discrete units. So, you know, if I race mixed with some African, for example, hypothetically, there would still be 50% of my white genes which would be passed on to the grandchildren, and if she chose a black man, there would still be like 25% of white genes, etc. And then maybe the next generation might marry a white man. So even if the genes are mixed up, the white genes are still there, okay? So he seemed to think that that was not a problem. Okay, well, I'm going to be a little bit sarcastic now. I thought of a good idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to win the lottery, and then I'm going to pay some genetic engineers to splice up all my genes and put some of my DNA in a rat and some of my DNA in a cockroach, some of my DNA in a scorpion. I'm going to choose all the animals that are, in the Darwinian sense, very fit, so they will survive probably longer than the human race, and all my DNA will survive. Wouldn't that be fantastic? So I would be immortal. So that's what I'm going to do, okay? Right, okay. So that hopefully exposes the fallacy, yeah? And, you know, the thing is, you know, it wouldn't be, you know, in order to survive, you know, I want my genes to cooperate with like genes to produce other human beings like me. That's the point, and that's why I don't like this multiracial society where there's race mixing, because I'm going to lose, you know, eventually, you know, we white people are going to lose our identity. We're just going to be mixed up with lots of other races, just like, you know, mixing my genes with a cockroach. Okay, right, so that leads me to the next point, fitness. Right, now, Darwinian fitness has nothing to do with, doesn't necessarily mean that you're more complex, you're more intelligent, etc. Fitness is just survival. So a rat is probably fitter than I am. Okay, it's got more chance of surviving in a harsh environment than me. Do I want to be a rat? No. Okay, so there's a dilemma. So when I introduce this paper, we have to think that, you know, how do you measure fitness? Well, you measure fitness by, in theory, by how many offspring, but, you know, this has got to be followed through several generations. So, you know, there's a lot of problems, practical problems, in actually measuring Darwinian fitness. And then, for us, what's important for us, things like beauty, intelligence, creativity, imagination and good taste are important. And that's what we want to preserve, and that's our kind of fitness. That's what we want to preserve. That's not natural selection, it's our artificial selection. But that's what we're about, white nationalists. We want to preserve what we like about ourselves, okay? Our beauty, our intelligence, our creativity, which is not necessarily the same as Darwinian fitness. So we have to take that into account. Now, there was a famous physicist called, from Austria, called Erwin Schrödinger, and he wrote a couple of popular books about biology, and, you know, he was saying that, you know, Darwinian evolution is a bit depressing because, you know, it means that our efforts are not rewarded in the future. But he said that maybe they are, because if you have a culture which values beauty, which values creativity, which values production of nice music, then people who are creative, people who are beautiful, people who can create nice music will tend to be the top people in that culture, wouldn't they? So they would tend to have more children, better choice of mates, etc. So culture is a kind of environment which can nurture certain genes which we, as part of nature, value. Right, so in the next part I'm going to go through this paper, but that's just the introduction. Okay, thank you.